Rage on that beat, going crazy. Rage on that beat, going crazy.
Hello, welcome to not Stadia Monday Night Chat, but Stadia breaking news. Not really breaking news. I'm quite nervous about doing this today, so bear with me. I've tried to structure it and get all my materials together. So without further ado, let's just say hello to chat. Thank you for coming along, everybody. I really appreciate it. On your Sunday, I apologize for the slightly clickbaity YouTube thumbnail, but there you go. That's what you got to do in life. But I do have some revelations. So, okay. Whew, nervous. Here we go. All good there in the chat. Are we sitting comfortably? Let me be very clear from the get-go here. CyberPunk2077 is not coming to Stadia on September the 17th, 2020 with the Xbox and PlayStation, okay? I'm not trying to be clickbaity. That's not why you're here. Sorry if the thumbnail got you all excited, but therein is part of the problem. But bear with me, please. Bear with me. Here is the truth. And I hope you're sitting down for this. For some of you, it may be a bit of a shock. But it was never coming day and date with Xbox, PlayStation. It was never coming day and date with Xbox, PlayStation. Now, is this a new revelation? Over the last day or so, the community's been in uproar. Pitchforks have been grabbed. There's been anger and disappointment, and it's been rife, absolutely rife. And I get that. Yeah, I get that. I'm not here to criticize people's disappointment much. The overreaction in some quarters, maybe. But then that's why I live alone. Lack of empathy, my creator says. Well, I say you program me. But this is not new news. In fact, it's not even news as in new. And in fact, I'm not the first person in the Stadia community, as been made clear to me this morning, the first one to point this all out. And sometimes, though, it's the one sane voice in a crowd often gets lost. So how do I know all of this? Somebody asked me, what's your source? You know, how do I know all this? What powers of mind reading or investigative journalism do I have? Well, I don't have anything. What I have is these glasses and these eyes and this brain. Sometimes in life we want something so much we try and will it into existence. And sometimes there can be a bit of misunderstanding or a lack of clarity, and it just reinforces that will. But, and this is not an opinion piece, this is not, what I'm doing is not an opinion piece, it's going to be fact-based. I will reveal to you what has been there all along, right in front of you, on a consistent basis. And you can then judge for yourself, and maybe it will realign your thoughts, and Cyberpunk and 2077 and Stadia and CD Projekt Red and all of that once maybe you've calmed down. Now, let me take you on a little journey through history with you. Okay? Will you come with me on this journey? Will you come with me? Let's start in the very present, okay? Bear with me here as I flick to the relevant websites. Okay? Hopefully you can see that all right. Here we are. As reported in Google 9 to 5, supposedly reputable site. I don't have a problem with that statement. They are pretty reputable. And in here, the headline. So this is from, we're starting with June the 6th. So yesterday, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday. Okay? June the 6th, 2020. So as though this is a headline news. This is breaking news, okay? Apparently this is breaking news. They're revealing it yesterday, June the 6th, 2020. Cyberpunk 2077 will still arrive late on Google Stadia, despite the larger delay. Revelation. And they quote as they saw. So one of the biggest titles, new titles coming to Google Stadia. The game was originally slated to come out, to current consoles and PCs in April, but there was a delay, pushed it back to September. As a result of that placement, and on the game's website, fair enough, Cyberpunk 2077 was expected to arrive at Stadia at the same time as other platforms. But that is not the case. Revelation, June the 6th, 2020. Revelation, this is not the case. Now, this article here by 9 to 5 is basically based on the Stadia source discovery of a press release that Stadia would be coming not on September the 17th, 2020, but would debut on Google Stadia later in the year. So this is the headline, news, breaking news. And, you know, Stadia source, in fairness to them, they've done their diligence. They found this press release and they've sort of said, hey, everybody who thought and assumed, and that is the big thing. Assumption is the mother of all fudge ups. Assumed Stadia would be, Cyberpunk 2077 would be coming to Stadia on 27th of September with all the other titles. And why wouldn't you think that? We go to the website here. Oops. No, I didn't mean to do that bit. Sorry. Stop that, please. Pause. Bear with me there. Right, here we are. Didn't mean to click on that. Why wouldn't you think that? Here it says, coming, Stadia coming, Cyberpunk coming, September the 17th, 2020. Pre-order now. And Cyberpunk effectively will be available on all these platforms. Okay? So based on this, I understand why wouldn't you think it's coming on the September the 17th, 2020? Why wouldn't you think that? Well, as I say, we're going to go on a journey, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go on a bit of a journey. So come with me on that journey as we now go back in time. Okay? I'm going to take you back in time all the way to May the 20th, 2019. Okay, so just over a year ago. And this is a press release from CD Projekt Red. Okay, who are CD Projekt Red? Oh yeah, the developers of the game we're talking about. Press release. And they go on. It's basically about the sales announcement. But here they go. Here they're just announcing here that they'll be taking part in the upcoming E3, which is shaping up to be the most important fair in their history, because they'll be lining up at E3 in 2019 talking about Cyberpunk 2077. It's May. That's May 2019. Okay, May 2019. So what came after that? Okay, so after that, we have the official E3 announcement. But who made that official E3 announcement? Let's have a look. CD Projekt Red. Okay, and we all remember the great moment. You're breathtaking. No, you're breathtaking. Keanu Reeves and all that coming on stage. And here it was revealed, originally here, it will come April the 16th, 2027 on PC, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Of course, at the moment, although Stadia as a concept had been announced, they hadn't announced the games that were coming to Stadia back on April the 16th, 2019. We all know that. So, of course, the announcement at E3 was just really about PC, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Okay. Next. Am I too shouty? I'm not reading. Okay. All right. So, fine. Big announcement, as we expected. Then we go to July. Okay. So now we're back here now. We're in July of 2019. Again, CD Projekt Red saying more announcements about it's coming to Gamescom. And of course, here we are. Cyberpunk 2077 will release April the 16th, 2020 for PC, Xbox One and PlayStation 4. So again, no mention of Stadia because Stadia had been announced in March, but the games announcements about, you know, the Stadia Connect last year in 2019 hadn't taken place. So of course, there's no mention of Stadia there. Fine, we get that. That's perfectly okay. I've got a problem with that. Then, of course, comes, yay, August 2019, ladies and gentlemen. August 2019. Again, this is from CD Projekt Red. They're announcing it here. Cyberpunk 2077 is coming to Google Stadia. Hooray! Cyberpunk 2077 will release April the 16th, 2020 for PC, Xbox One and PlayStation 4. The Google Stadia version will launch the same year. Additional details will be available at a later date. So, all along, as they say, they announced that they'll be releasing on PC, Xbox One and PlayStation 4 at April the 16th. And then when Stadia comes into the picture, so we're through the development stage already. We're a good couple of years in the development stage. Stadia comes on board. Yeah, they're going to do a version for Stadia, but it will come later in the year after this April the 16th announcement. All cool and dandy. Haven't got a problem with that. November 2019. CD Projekt Red website again. The game got voted the most wanted game of the year. The hype's out there. Everybody's very excited. Wow, well done. The game's not even out, but people are hyped for it. November the 15th, 2019. And at the bottom of the press release, CyberPunk2077 will release April the 16th, 2020 for PC, Xbox One, PlayStation 4. And with the version for Google Stadia set to launch the same year. Fair enough. Okay, happy with that. So, it's not coming day and date of April. We knew that. That's fine. Hey, Clive, that's not news. I get it. Okay, that's cool. January the 16th, 2020. We are now in this year, 2020, ladies and gentlemen. 2020. Bad news, everybody. New release date of Cyberpunk 2077. So, Cyberpunk 2077 won't make the April release window, and we're moving the launch date to September the 17th, 2020. Oh no, they're moving the release date. So that's just really a catch-up saying we're moving the release date. No announcement of any of the, the platforms or anything. They're just saying, okay, their original April release window, okay, so the release in April is now being put forward to September the 17th, 2020. The Stadia release was never going to take place in April anyway, but what they're saying is the April release window now moved to September the 17th, 2020. Lovely, fine, and dandy. Little bit sad, but hey, everybody's going, whoa, that's great. As long as the game delivers with the quality we expect and all of that, that'll be cool. Now, April the 20th, 2020. Bear in mind that Stadia Source found the press release, which I'm coming to, a month or so after this. But this was April the 20th, 2020, this year. Okay? Let's have a look what the current press release is. Hopefully I'm in the right window here. Cyberpunk. So this was a press release for the Xbox One X in custom console. A nice fancy, get yourself a nice fancy Xbox One X here. All done out in fancy Cyberpunk 2077 gear. April the 20th of this year, this is. Cyberpunk 2077 will release September the 17th, 2020 for PC, Xbox One and PlayStation 4. And with the version for Google Stadia set to launch the same year. Again, the same message is repeated. Hello, wake up. With the same version for Stadia set. This is not new. This is the same message. Okay, that was April the 20th of this year. So, just make sure I'm back on me. Close that. Close that, let's close that, let's close that, let's close that, let's close that. A lot of windows open just to get this. And then, of course, this was the source, the Stadia source, sort of came out and revealed that everybody's assumption, and this was the big issue, everybody's assumption that meant Stadia as well releasing on September the 17th was perhaps incorrect. So this was the source that Stadia Source discovered here, again from the CD Projekt Red website. And they're talking about the advertising group behind it that will be marketing this with 2 waves of marketing, one in September and a follow-up in November 2077, which is probably around the Thanksgiving time and the new releases and console releases and stuff like that. And in it here, this was the reveal that Stadia Source discovered. It will be released on September the 17th, 2020 for the PC, Xbox One and PlayStation 4. By the end of the year, the game will also make its debut on Google Stadia. So later in the year, bear in mind it's September, it's not much later in the year on Google Stadia. Okay, Google, stop. Google trying to butt in there. Okay. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. What can we conclude from this? Consistently, from the announcement, the first announcement, so we knew first that Stadia wasn't even in the picture at the beginning of the development cycle for this. So this isn't a game that's started from scratch with PlayStation, Xbox, PC, and Stadia in mind from the get-go. They announced this a long time. We know they've been working on this for 5 or 7 years, some crazy amount of time. We know this. And Stadia is a fairly new platform, and it's late. It came late in the development stage. And when it was announced in August, so since August, they have consistently said it will come to Stadia later. In November, it will come to Stadia later. In January, we're moving the original window to September, and then later on in April, it will come to Stadia later. And then, as Stadia Source discovered later in May, it will come to Stadia later. So but the problem is, over the last day or so, you've had the Stadia community up in arms. Like, this is like brand new news. We never knew this. What? Who? Well done, Stadia Source, and well done for Stadia Source for digging it out. But like, this is new news. And then other press running on this, like 9 to 5, basically saying, wow, breaking news, guys. The Stadia launch of CyberPunk2077 has been delayed. It's not coming on September the 17th. Well, breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. It was never, ever coming on September the 17th. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if that bothers people. Now, I get it. You go to the website. I'm not denying. You go to the website here. You go to the website. And it says coming September the 17th, 2020, pre-order now. You can't pre-order it on Stadia anyway. You can never pre-order stuff on Stadia. But underneath it there, it's got all the platforms that it's going to be available for. Is that misleading? Yeah. Is it inconsistent with the consistent message that CD Projekt Red have put out there since they first announced it for Stadia? Yes, it is inconsistent with that. Could this site be clearer? I think on the Mafia site, for instance, you had to dig quite far to say, oh, and coming to Stadia in August. It's a bit untidy from a marketing point of view, a website, but I can understand the lack of clarity if this is all you're going by. But the fact that people like 9 to 5 here, okay, jump on the source, for instance, that Stadia Source discovered from May the 29th, which actually, as it turns out, was not new news then, because it was also in a press release on April the 20th. And that was in line with all the other press releases in the previous year, consistently saying that, yes, effectively, Stadia was never in mind at the very get-go of the start of this development, because the development started nearly 5 years ago. But as soon as Stadia became a platform on which they could release, then yeah, they were going to do a version for it. But in the project Gantt, so if you're in project management, you know what a Gantt chart is. In the Gantt chart, that's kind of they've had to sort of add that on. So ultimately, that is my point. That somehow this is like a big revelation that it's not coming. But the news it's been there all the time in front of us. But in a way, we chose not to see it. Or we chose selectively to see what we wanted to see. Because we all want, it's such a big AAA title. And this was the big message we could send out there to the Stadia. And well, this would be the one. Even I've said it, you know, as long as Cyberpunk delivers on the same day as all the other platforms, then, you know, that's great. It's going to send a great message. But where did that come from? Other than just an assumption based on that website. And yet where all the other press release from the developer has clearly stated it was never coming day and date to Stadia. Who is to blame for that? CD Projekt Red for not being clear on their website? Maybe. I'm not here to judge. You decide. As I say, Mafia tucked away somewhere deep in one of their press releases. Oh yeah, and on Stadia a little bit later. But you had to dig for that. Google Stadia? No, I don't think so. Or, and bear with me on this, and don't hate me, you. Are you to blame? And me. Am I to blame? I believed it as well, because I didn't bother to go and have a look. Yeah, I ignored all the boring press releases. Or did I ignore it? Or did all the press, who then, the point is a press release is you give it out and then the press are meant to amplify it. Okay? But that bit was never amplified. Or was it amplified and we chose not to hear it? Coming to Stadia later. Coming to Stadia later. Coming to Stadia later. Every press release from CD Projekt Red effectively said, coming to Stadia later. Did we choose not to listen to that? Did the press choose not to listen to that? Was the 9 to 5 article based on Stadia Source's good digging? I'm not disrespecting Stadia Source. They did their job. They did, if it wasn't for them, it would have spurred me on to go, okay, what about all the other press releases? Again, as I said to MM2K about the whole Take-Two thing, there was something that didn't sit right. And so I did some digging. It's not difficult digging. I'm not some investigative journalism. I just went to CD Projekt Red and looked at all their press releases over the years. So don't hate me, I'm just a messenger. Take your time to think about what I've shown you. Go and have a look yourself. And then think about your feelings on it. And where those feelings, which again, as my creator tells me, I have to understand that humans have feelings. I get it. I understand that. And I have to show empathy. Show empathy. It's in my programming now. I try to show empathy with people with emotions, and that's fine. And it's fine. We're passionate about it. We're passionate about Stadia, passionate about CyberPunk2077. You put those things together. There's a lot of passion going on. There's a lot of emotion. I get it. I get it, people. I get it. But when we sit back and we look, and hopefully this little journey through the history of press releases about CyberPunk2077 and its release on Stadia will give you some sort of, all I'm asking, take a deep breath, take a step back and think, oh, well, actually, wait a minute. Maybe our reaction is our reaction. You're allowed to have reactions. Is it in proportion to what is actually going on? And what's going on is, was the 9 to 5 Google article some kind of major revelation? And I'm sorry to break the news to you, but the answer is no, it wasn't a major revelation. The real truth about Cyberpunk 2077 coming to Stadia has been there all the time. That's all I'm going to say. Now I'm going to look over here at chat with certain nervousness and certain trepidation. So bear with me, and thank you for listening. Okay. Hey, Dave Widnall, member. He's joined the member. I'm not here to really kind of push my channel, but I've got that off my chest now. I feel slightly relieved. I hope you don't hate me for it and all that kind of stuff. All I'm trying to do is show you what's been there all the time. And you can still be angry. You can still be annoyed. You can still be frustrated. Of course, I haven't got a problem with that. There's no shame in that. But just sometimes think about where the anger is placed. And sometimes we're a little bit at fault ourselves. The bigger picture, sometimes we have to sort of say, you know what? Oh, yeah, maybe I got a little bit overexcited. Maybe I made some assumptions. But yeah, some of those assumptions were driven by lack of clarity on CD Projekt Red's site, on the fact it was on their website. And it didn't really sort of say, and coming later to Stadia. It just had the platforms, like as is the norm, the platforms upon which this thing will be available. Less so at Stadia. Don't vent your frustration at Stadia, Google Stadia. They have to control this message. They have to get in front of this message. What message? The message is already out there. The developer has been telling us all along. It's coming later. Sorry. That's just the facts. I'm sorry. Right. Oh my God. I think the issue is that they said it was coming later when it was coming out in April. Yes. And when it got delayed to September, that says to me that later in the year, and it was advertised as such. Well, that's the problem, the lack of clarity. But part of that is the assumption. Yeah. An assumption was made. Even though consistently, even as late as April, or as early as April, however you want it, it said it would be coming later in the year. That's the issue. So between January and April, you could have had that assumption, okay? But in April, CD Projekt Red said it was going to be coming later in the year. But why only yesterday is everybody running around with their pitchforks, going mad, throwing their toys out the pram, lying on the floor, stamping their legs? Why didn't they do that in April when it was revealed then? That's all I'm saying. It's been there all along. Plenty of games, says Kevin Webb, to keep you. Exactly, on Stadia. I'd like Google just to have a simple table of games and estimated dates. Same for features. I think, Dave, that would be a great idea, but I think reality has shown us, and the reaction, that you're setting yourself up for a fall. Just because a platform holder isn't making a game, that doesn't mean they're not reasonably responsible for anything to do with the release. I never understood that mentality. I'm not saying Stadia are, but Stadia don't have to. Are you telling me that Stadia needs to correct assumptions? Yeah. So hello, yeah. Sorry, I'll do that. Hello, Stadia press department. Management. How are you? Yes. What, people have assumptions? Yeah. Could we do press releases which combat every kind of assumption that people have? Oh, how many assumptions do you think that will be? Infinite. People can have an infinite amount of assumptions. Okay, so we'll have to do an infinite number of press releases based on an infinite number of assumptions that people make just to combat them. Yes. What's the reality? Stadia, CyberPunk2077 is coming later to Stadia, as CD Projekt Red has all said all along. Okay. But there may be some lack of clarity and some assumptions have been made. Okay. So can you battle those infinite number of assumptions? It's not how it works. Why should... There's nothing to correct, if you see what I mean. The community are the people that have made an assumption fact. Yeah? They've believed it so much that somehow it's become an unmovable, an immovable fact. And yet, the truth, the press release, so the developer's been press releasing all the time. It's coming later, 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 because Stadia as a platform came much later in the development cycle. It's coming later, it's coming later. So why are you expecting Stadia, therefore, correct people's assumptions? That's wrong on this occasion. Yes, if there's a massive misunderstanding. But press releases aren't there just to sort of... People make assumptions. People make assumptions all the time in the news. People see something, they read something, a half-truth, a bit of information, and then they fit it into their worldview at the time. Does it work? Does it fulfill a dream that I think is going to happen? That's what happens. So there we are. That's my view. Humans make an us out of you and me. Exactly. The assumption is the mother of all fudges. Ruin my favourite toys and hurt my foot. Exactly, that's what happened. Imagine if Google had a way of knowing what its community thought. Well, exactly, but really, I still think, I understand the idea that it, but the point, the way that, let me put it this way. The way that it was revealed is that somehow, as of yesterday, this was shocking news, and Google had to get in front of this shocking revelation, revealed, as though, so this is how it was pitched, and this is how people reacted to other people's reaction, if you understand what I'm saying. So yesterday, the reaction was as if CD Projekt Red had suddenly come out and said, look, I know we all promised Stadia would release on September the 17th. I'm really sorry, but it's going to be delayed. Right? That is what people have reacted as though that was the statement that was somehow made. But it wasn't the statement. Nobody made that statement. That's what I'm saying. If that had been the statement, if CD Projekt Red had said, look, we've come out because of COVID, whatever, there's been some problems, there's been some delays, and unfortunately we're pushing the Stadia release back from the September the 17th to a later date. We apologize for that. All the reaction that happened yesterday would fit that scenario, okay? And that would be perfectly acceptable. And yes, I'd expect Google to go, look, we're sorry, guys, to hear the news that the release date is no longer to September the 17th and everything's been pushed back. We're sorry about that. We're getting in front of it and we're managing that message now, okay? In that scenario, yes, Google should, okay? But that was not the scenario because it was never releasing on September the 17th on Google Stadia. Do you get me, man? That's what I'm saying. Do you get my meaning? CD Projekt Red never came out yesterday or day before and made some announcement that's, you know, and that somehow they've had to delay the Stadia because it was never delayed. It's not been delayed. It was always coming out later. And that's why this is, but the way everybody's reacting and following up and on the press releases and all this kind of stuff and the 9 to 5 article is somehow it's a sudden revelation. Ergo, there is a delay. There's been a problem, and therefore the Stadia. Even I was thinking, okay, well, it must be because the developer is facing some kind of crunch, and in that scenario, you've got to make some hard decisions, and they decided, well, actually, commercially, the important platforms are PlayStation and Xbox, so we'll concentrate on that at the expense of Stadia and push Stadia out. Even I made that assumption yesterday until I looked and did some research and looked into it. And now I realize that's not the case at all. There's been no COVID delay. There's been no, oh my God, developer crunch, we're not going to hit the dates for Xbox and PlayStation 4. Start throwing everything out of the balloon. Start bailing. Push Stadia out further. None of that. But this is the assumption that even I made. I'm even guilty of it. So no, does Google Stadia have to get in front of this? No, they don't. We are partly at fault as a community. I'm not saying we're 100% at fault, okay? But we've got to be honest with ourselves. We wanted it so. I wanted it so. I've even used it as a case in point that this would be an example of how Stadia is just like any other platform and the big AAA releases release day and date. I am guilty of that. Hands up, I confess. I too am subject to making massive, big FU assumptions. Okay? Guilty. You're ignoring the front page and point to lines buried in press releases you don't even know about. That you didn't even know about. Exactly. Exactly. But it's not my job as I'm not a news site. It's not my duty to do proper article. I don't write articles. Yeah, if I did, they'd certainly be more rounded than most of the articles that are written. The point is that some of the articles written are based on assumptions. Okay? I like to base things on facts. That's all I'm saying. We choose to ignore stuff. Not we, the press as well. Choose to ignore stuff, which is right in front of us. Because you start believing a certain narrative, you believe it's the case. And then you stop forgetting about actually bothering to have a look. The point of a press release is saying, here are the facts. How much of those facts are reported? A different case. Now, I'm not denying the fact that it says September the 17th and then lists a series of consoles that the game will be available on underneath. is misleading. I'm not saying that. And all I'm asking you, the people watching this, or the community, is just to consider everything I've shown you, yeah, which is direct from CD Projekt Red. The consistency of the message about Stadia, it coming to Stadia later. Consistent message from when it was first announced and coming in April. It was going to come in later in the year. So everything, all that happened in reality is the delivery in April with Google coming Stadia late, with Cyberpunk coming to Stadia later in the year, was picked up and moved to September with Stadia coming later in the year. That's all that happened. That's all I'm saying on it. No, Stadia, even in their announcement that it was April the 16th, in the press release, Trev, it said coming to Google Stadia later this year, in the CD Projekt press release. The point is, so you're saying, well, Stadia have to say, well, it's coming. Every press release from CDPR is that coming by end of year for Stadia. Yeah. But I don't think it's Stadia can only report effectively from a developer what the developer's reporting, and the developer is saying it's coming later in the year. One Stadia get the press release. Say you work in the press department. You get the press release from CD Projekt Red. I'm reading the press release. Blah, 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 coming later in the year. Okay, it's coming later in the year. It's coming later in the year. Fine, it's not consistent. That's not changed. It's coming later in the year. One press department reading another press department's press release. There's no error in that. Everything else is the problems is what's happening outside in the world in terms of the reporting in the press, but the assumption as well. It's partly the community assumption, not helped by the CD Projekt Red. I'm not, there is a lack of clarity on that website. I'm not denying it. I'm not here to say, to deny my own eyes, as it were. It says September the 17th, 2020, pre-order now, and then a list of Xbox One, PS4, PC, Stadia. Now, often it usually says coming soon to Xbox One, PS4, PC on September 17th, 2020, and later you see it, and later on Nintendo Switch and Stadia or whatever. You often see that. All this really is a list of platforms upon which it will be available. The logical assumption, as 9 to 5 say very clearly here, any logical person would assume that means Stadia would be getting a launch at the same time as anyone else. True. If that was your only source. True. I get it. I fell for that as well. I fell for, that was my logical conclusion based on the facts that I had, which was basically the website and not any of the press releases. But all I'm saying is, there's not new news that there's a delay. It's not been delayed. It's merely arriving when they said it would arrive from the get-go. That's all I'm trying to say. None of you read the press releases. This is a joke. You need to be focused on the result and its impact on the platform, not whether you believe it's justified. I know some people doubt this, but I think there's something contractual, as the game was in development long before Stadia was a thing. It was a long, and so that's why it's always hard for them to catch up. That's the problem. Right, but the front page isn't a Google platform. I don't quite get that bit, Trev. They have no say over the company's website. Gem Stadia. Welcome, Gem. Welcome to the chat. What's the big deal? If you're a cloud gamer and want Cyberpunk early, just buy it for GeForce Now. Yeah, well, exactly. If you're really, really, really desperate, you can play it on GeForce Now. Exactly. I mean, The curious thing will be how long the delay is, and that's another question. Personally, I think the window of release is up to Thanksgiving. So November the 25th, personally, because that's when the real marketing and everything kicks through. Maybe the 1st of December. I think that's the limit at which it needs to release on Stadia. But they've never been clear about how long that delay is. The big deal is we want the platform to succeed. Why not just go and buy every game somewhere else? Of course I want the platform to succeed, but I guess the main point here is, yes, will we see AAA titles arrive day and date on Stadia? Yes, we will. Of course we will. Those that at the start point had PC, PlayStation, Xbox One, and Stadia as the target platforms from the get-go. Yes, we will. Will there be a bit of catch-up for things that were already in development before Stadia kind of came into existence, i.e. Cyberpunk 2077? Yes, there will. That's why we had a lot of ports, and these things have come a bit later because they're trying to sort of catch up with some of the current AAA titles that exist, bring some back catalogue stuff to the platform to build out the library. But as we get further into the development cycle of games that are current AAA games that are under development now, that had Stadia as one of the target platforms from the get-go, yes, you will see day and date releases on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Stadia. I can guarantee you that. On the community forums, the Stadia guy kept saying they can only assume it will be in September. Yeah, we all make assumptions. We all make leaps. Yeah, well, you know what, Mixetti, if I'm really honest about that, if this bothers you so much that you want to rip your Chromecast Ultra out of the back of your telly, yeah, pick up your Stadia controller and throw it out the window, fair enough. What can I say? Yeah? Apart from anger management school. But apart from that, what can I say? If you're really desperate to play it, you can play it on other platforms. As I say, as Jem said, you can play it on GeForce Now if you're really desperate. Or wait. I don't think it will be that long. Definitely, if they, because of the end of the year. And the end of the year, in reality, is not the 31st of December. They're not going to release it on the 30th of December. Okay? Work stops like the 20th of December, if not earlier, in reality. As I said, Thanksgiving, November the 25th, is the big release date for things. So they probably want to, and consoles are coming then and all that sort of stuff. So I think by the beginning of December, it should be launched by the beginning of December. But that's an assumption. I'm making an assumption. It's not fact-based. Maybe the Power Fantastic says, maybe the Stadia guys on the forum need to read the press releases. Well, we're all sort of scrabbling away for every little bit of tidbit of information that we can find, which is fair enough, because we all want to find the bit of information. But with every, you always need to check your sources, yeah? If somebody comes to me today and says, I hope I'm still streaming. If somebody comes to me and says, actually, CD Projekt Red tweeted here that it would be available on the Stadia version on September the 17th. Look, this is from CD Projekt Red. Or even Google Stadia stating that very fact, then, whoa, yeah, Houston, we've got a problem. Okay? Bring that to me. And I'll go, all right, yeah, okay. This video's been a waste of time. That's all I'm saying. I hope I'm still broadcasting here because let me just refresh my YouTube. Anyway, I think I'm going to Are we still live? I think I'm going to leave it there. I put it out there. It's food for thought. Yeah? You're fine. I'm not, you're fine to be upset, I think, and have annoyance that your assumption, for whatever reason it was based, and we all make assumptions, and there's nothing wrong in that. Life is about making assumptions sometimes and filling in the gaps, and that's half the problem. To what degree do we need to be handheld through the maze of life and point at every little thing, especially in PR and marketing? I'm not sure. But all I've hoped my video has done today is to point out that, one, there has been a consistent message from CDR Project Red that CyberPunk2077 would be arriving first on Xbox One, PlayStation 4 and PC, and Google Stadia later. And that is because they're already well into development, and Google Stadia wasn't the target platform because Google Stadia didn't exist as a thing when they started development. And as soon as it did exist as a thing, then yes, thanks to talking to Google, they jumped straight on board and said, yeah, we can make that work for Google Stadia, and we'll make sure that we release a version of it on Google Stadia. And it will come a little bit later after the release of the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, PC. And that's perfectly understandable given the development cycle, where they were in the development cycle and where Stadia was in its announcements and its releases. And since that time, and since it's been announced that it was coming to Stadia from August 2019, the message has been consistent in every single press release from CD Projekt Red. It will be coming to Google Stadia later in the year, i.e. after Xbox One, PlayStation 4. And that is all is there for everybody to read. And that's all I'm saying. I hope you found that useful. I hope you found it interesting. I hope it caused a bit of conversation. I hope you weren't too annoyed by the clickbaity YouTube thumbnail. And as I say, there are opinions and there are facts. And what I've tried to do today is just present you with some facts, with a sprinkling of opinion, so that you can go away and maybe just think about it. Think about your behavior. Go away and you think about your behavior. No, go away and just think about it with a few more facts and a bit more information at your fingertips. And on that, I mean, come back with some extra thoughts. I shall be live as normal, Stadia Monday Night Chat. Happy to engage with you and to talk about this a little bit more, as I will. Stadia Monday Night Chat, 10 p.m. Monday night, UK time. And yeah, make sure you join me. I appreciate you coming here today. I appreciate you taking part in the chat, being part of the conversation. I'm happy to have discussions with people back and forth. As I say, remember, hit that like, even if you were unhappy with what I said, hit that like just to be a nice person, yeah? Just be a nice person. If you're new to the channel, then, hey, make sure you hit subscribe. That would be a wonderful thing to do, and I'd really, really appreciate it. As I say, thank you for coming. I was a bit nervous about doing this. I've got it off my chest. I don't care. It's too late now. It's out. It's out there for everybody to see. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say goodbye. And don't forget, come and watch me Monday night.
Rage on that beat, going crazy.